So my name is Michael Wigge. I'm a travel writer. That's my main profession, and I have this portfolio of many different travels. And all these travels have one thing in common. Like in each story, I'm facing a travel challenge. Like here, how to travel the world for free. Could I make it to travel around the world without any money? So I have, several books I published. How to travel Europe blindfolded, wearing a sleeping mask. How to travel Germany on a razor scooter, a kick scooter, 2,000 miles in 80 days. How to travel 50 states in America in 50 days and face 50 different challenges. So that's my life, traveling and always facing these challenges. So you may wonder, okay, so here's this travel writer today. How is he qualified to speak about leadership and goal setting? So for many years, I never thought about leadership at all. Because I was just doing my travels, trying to get things done and enjoying, the world. But then one day I thought I faced these challenges. I left my comfort zone. Isn't that something very typical in any kind of leadership role, to face challenges, to leave, your comfort zone to reach or to achieve that desired goal? So here we go. One day I got a phone call after I published How to Travel the World for Free. So luckily it was broadcasted around the world, in Germany, in America on PBS, in Brazil, in Russia. And this man called me, and I was still living in Germany, and he said, hey, my name is Jay. I have this little TV show in America. Do you want to join? And I was like, okay, who else is there? And he's like, yeah, a singer called Katy. We call her Katy Perry. So I ended up on The Tonight Show, with my book, How to Travel the World for Free. So it was a major success. So this whole story, traveling the world without money, because I didn't have money at that time, turned out to be a major success around the world in different countries. So I thought, well, maybe I have learned something about goal setting and leadership, and I didn't even recognize it. So I kind of started analyzing what I learned in this project and all the other projects. And this is what I would like to share with you today. And I'm sure even, your industry and what I do is very different. You might relate to what I experience in my project, and even your project may be very different, but you may experience the same. So today I want to talk 7 leadership lessons I learned along the way, traveling from Europe to Antarctica without any money. Anyone here in the room traveled without money before? Okay. Maybe after this keynote, okay? Okay, so this is how it looks when you're without money at the Grand Canyon in Arizona. Just a sign. No money for food, travel, accommodation. So, can be a challenge. And here a quick summary of the entire trip.
30 to 35,000 kilometer journey from Berlin to Antarctica will be anything but a walk in the park without a penny in his pocket. The journey will take him across the Atlantic to Canada and on to the USA, hopefully taking in the Grand Canyon, through Central America and eventually through Colombia and finally down along South America. After traveling through at least 10 countries and practically all climates the planet has to offer, he will somehow find a way across the Drake Passage to Antarctica.
So that was the trip, supposed to be the trip. So the first thing I learned, when I started this trip, right away, was to improve my listening skills. And I think this is something very important in leadership, to work on listening skills, to be able to be a great listener. So can I just ask you here, has anyone, ever worked on listening skills in your own profession where you thought maybe, this is a good one to reflect on? Okay, a couple of people, exactly. So how did I recognize that listening is something I want to learn and I have the great chance to learn? Let me give you 2 examples. So if I talk about traveling the world for free, how do I travel? So hitchhiking is the easiest one to go for free. So in 11 countries. So when I hitchhiked and people gave me a ride, the first couple of days and weeks of my trip, I was kind of like, when I entered the car, I was telling my story because I was so excited. I was telling them I'm going around the world with no money, and I was talking. But then, I was excited. But then I recognized, well, maybe it's better to become a listener here, because many people gave me a ride because they saw a chance to have a listener, like an anonymous listener. And to share their life story. So like here in the car, this is still in Europe, this man just told me everything. Like the entire life story, like his family situation, anything. And that was what he felt like he wanted to do. He gave me a ride, but we did this kind of barter deal, but he was able to share his life story. So, and the more and more I got into becoming a better listener, the more generous these people became. So after he told me his life story, and I listened for like an hour and a half and I didn't interrupt him, he said, look, this was so awesome. Finally, I could tell someone my story. Let me call my brother. He's gonna help you out with food for free. And let me call my sister. She's gonna give you an accommodation. So the more I learned to put myself back, in the background and let the people speak, the more helpful they became. And I'm sure if you look at your professional life, sometimes it's very important, to, especially in leadership, to be a good listener. If you build a team and you want all team members to be strong, it's very important to listen to all of them, to really support them, to make them stronger. I give you another example. So this is like very out of the box, obviously, because it's a trip around the world. How did I get food for free? I offered barter deals. So I went to this bakery in Belgium, for example, and I saw that muffin for free. So how would I get a muffin for free? To offer a barter deal. Like, hey, what can I give you in return if you're offering me the muffin for free? And first, when I started that barter game, I wasn't good at it, and I wasn't so good in listening. So I just offered like any kind of trade. Like, hey, can I clean your floor to get the muffin for free? But then I learned, well, I should listen what these people really want. Because these people in that situation were my clients, my customers, in a way. So I started asking, how can I make you happy right here? If we're going to do this barter deal, you give me the muffin, what can I do for you? And believe me, 95% of the people had something. They said something right away. And the lady in the bakery said, tell me a joke. If the joke is good, you're going to get the muffin for free. I told the joke. The joke wasn't good, but I still got the muffin for free. So this is what I learned. Like, ask your clients what they really want. And one person wants a great joke. The other person says, go in the kitchen, clean the dishes, or be a waiter for half an hour. So, but it was important to really listen to what they want. And I'm sure, in everybody's industry, it's the same, we have to listen to the clients. What does the client want? And the better we improve our listening skills, the better we can serve our clients. So here, just a statistic, 85% of what we know we've learned through listening. 80% of our success in learning from other people is based upon how well we listen. So I'm glad, this trip gave me the opportunity to work on my listening skills and improve leadership skills and goal setting in general. So, how did I travel from Europe across the Atlantic to North America? So I got a job on a cargo ship, 12 days from Belgium to Montreal, Canada, and it was great. So I didn't earn money, so it was like work for travel. And as you can see here, they made me do the oil change of a 23,000 horsepower engine. So I never did that oil change at my car. So here I had to learn, how to do oil change in a cargo ship. So it was definitely a comfort zone leaving exercise, and great, it's doable, believe me. The most difficult things, this looked very difficult to me, but sometimes they're so much easier if you just overcome the fear and try it out. That man explained me how to do that oil change. I did it, took several hours, but I did an oil change, in a cargo ship. So I crossed the Atlantic, and this is in Montreal, Canada. You see me like down there, sitting below that big sign with a computer. So the computer was a very important part on this trip because with a computer I could log into free Wi-Fi around the world and use social media to reach out to people for free accommodation. So Facebook, many other social media, you can just post, hey guys, I'm in Montreal, without money, is anyone around who would kind of like, offer me their living room, their couch for like a day or two? And it works. It really works. I slept, around the world at like 30 different people, at least. And social media, internet made it happen. So I crossed the border to the US at the Niagara Falls, and I started hiking the state of Ohio. I never really hiked like hundreds of miles before, and it was a great experience. It's a beautiful state. Anyone from Ohio? Yeah. Oh, okay, there we go. So, beautiful state, and, and this was the interesting part, like things happen. If you're just open to things happen. So all of a sudden this man stopped, and he was like, hey, do you want me to give you a ride? I didn't even hitchhike. And I was like, yeah, sure. So we were sitting in his horse buggy, and I was asking him, like, okay, why do you, go by horse buggy and don't drive a car? And he said, well, I'm an Amish farmer. And, we decline modern technology. We don't use internet, we don't use cars, we don't use a smartphone. We have a kind of a 19th century lifestyle. And I asked him, like, okay, that's awesome. That's like a time machine. Can I join you and live at your family for a couple days? I want to film this and be part of it. And he gave me permission. Usually the Amish farmers are a little bit cautious when it comes to like video cameras, but he just gave me permission to live in their house in the village of Berlin, 120 Amish farmers, and learn about, the Amish lifestyle. And here I learned the second lesson about leadership. Embracing change. Yeah, I'm sure in your project, you have to embrace change on a regular basis. Yeah? Like in a very challenging project, there are many different things to do. So just look at my situation. 2 days before I reached the Amish farmers, I was still on that cargo ship, like trying to do that oil change. Then I was reaching out in Montreal to people to give me a free accommodation. Then I was hiking. Then I was with the Amish farmers trying to fit into that Amish farmer lifestyle. Then they gave me a present, a bicycle, a bike. I could go from Berlin to Columbus, Ohio with a bike. I sold the bike. I could buy a bus ticket across the Midwest. And like 36 hours later, I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And just when I left the bus, I met this man, Joseph, and he's a homeless person in Albuquerque. And he offered me to join him for a couple of days to get an insight on that homeless scene in Albuquerque, So just imagine, we're just talking about 5 different days. Cargo ship, reaching out people to get free accommodation, being with the Amish farmers, being with the homeless people, being in a bus, trying to get food, trying to be funny, trying to be trustworthy, trying to be serious. So I was wearing basically 10 different hats a day. This project made me wear many different hats a day, like in a pace I never had before. I never experienced before. So it was very difficult at the beginning to do that, to change from the funny guy to the trustworthy guy, from, all these different things with all these different people. But it was an awesome exercise to be able to better embrace change, to leave my comfort zone and go from one thing to another, go back. And I'm sure here in the room, you know this in your project, in your work, like sometimes we have to switch. We have to switch. And the better we are able to embrace change in our career, the better we reach certain goals, and especially very important in leadership. So I joined that homeless community. So this is like a food kitchen, Christian supported food kitchen for homeless people, and Joseph introduced me to all his friends. Obviously not an easy situation. People are homeless, people are suffering. There are good things I saw, and rather challenging things. And I met this man on the right, Greg, homeless person, and he taught me lesson number 3. So I was sitting next to him and I said, like, look, man, I mean, you look more like a small business owner. What are you doing here, kind of? And he's like, well, you know what? I've been a small business owner like a month ago. I lost my entire business. And that's why I'm in that, homeless kitchen right now and getting support with the food. And I asked him, what happened? And so he told me, like he lost his clients, one thing after another. He didn't have savings. And so, unfortunately, he was in this situation right now. But, I found it so impressive. He was not devastated. There was no self-pity. There was nothing like that. What he told me, listen, I take this as a chance. It's hard right now, but I take it as a chance to learn and to grow. And I want to restart my business and be a much better business owner than I've done before. So I found this really incredible. This man was like 50 years old, basically homeless. So, and that's what he taught me, fail forward. We all want to succeed, and when I've done these projects, there was always the goal to get it done. And in your field, the same. You have to get stuff done. We all do fail at one stage, right? I mean, it's unrealistic to just be always perfect. And I think that is so important to embrace as well. If there is a failure, if there is something that doesn't work out, to always try to see it as a chance, as an opportunity to learn. If we never fail, I mean, how do we really want to learn? That's the best way to learn. So I had this client the other day, coaching client, an executive in Colorado. I'm based in Boulder, Colorado. And so he challenged me on that. We were talking about it, and he said, look, I don't believe you, if I fail 3 times, I'm going to lose my job. So I was like, okay, right. That's important to differentiate here. It doesn't mean like just random failure is okay, but it means if there is something that doesn't work out, to take it as a lesson to learn. And that's what this project taught me. Nowadays when something doesn't work out, I have a different attitude to it. There is not this heavy frustration and kind of anger about myself. It's more like, well, what can I learn from this current situation? And I think it's such a helpful attitude. So this executive in Boulder, Colorado the other day when I was coaching him, he challenged me. He's like, tell me one man who is really successful, who failed a lot. And I was like, well, I got someone for you. Probably most people here in the room know Elon Musk. Incredible entrepreneur, like he started with PayPal, SpaceX, Tesla. I mean, I'm German. Like the German car industry is scared of this man because with Tesla, he's gonna make it. That's the car of the future. That's a future car. Like the German car companies are still a little bit old-fashioned. And he owns Solar City, or he's partially owner of Solar City. So this is like the success example. But look at his history of failure. So this man has an open history of failure. Like he got fired from PayPal during his honeymoon. I mean, that's pretty much like tough. He nearly went bankrupt several times. The first 3 SpaceX rockets crashed, and he lived on $1 a day after high school, like me and that trip. So that's Elon Musk, and he handles this part of his biography like absolutely open. Like he doesn't make a fuss about all these things. That he's even proud of it. So here's a great statement of Elon Musk. If something is important enough, you should try, even if the probable outcome is failure. Just imagine. That means like if he thinks, well, the chance that I'm going to fail is 70%, and he really thinks it's an important thing to do, he still does it. He still does it. I mean, I would think about that twice, I must admit. Like, if I think 70% chance of failure, I wouldn't be sure. And this man is such a risk taker, he still does it. And that's where his success is based upon. So, let's move on west. From Albuquerque, New Mexico, all the way west, Route 66, hitchhiking. Someone with this great Mustang gave me a ride. Built 1964, I think. I could be wrong. And he took me to Vegas. So I thought, this is going to be really easy now. Like Vegas, that's going to be fun, and there is so much entertainment, and the guy without money should fit in. But you can imagine that was pretty naive. That was pretty naive because the guy without money doesn't really fit in, like the entertainment does cost something. So I try to get barter deals in these major hotels, but they are all corporations. So when I entered this hotel, like the Mirage and all these hotels, they said, look, you have to write a letter or an email or a fax to our head office in New York, and then you have to, and I was like, okay, I'm out of it. So it doesn't work. These are big companies. So how could I get free accommodation in Vegas? That was really difficult. So all day long I walked around and I thought, well, I might really fail here. I have a big problem. Where should I sleep? But luckily there is the roadway in. So if you ever travel across, to Vegas or across Vegas and you don't have money, just go to the roadway in. Yeah, because David is the manager there. He still is. I checked it out the other day. And so he is open enough to do barter deals with people who don't have money. So, interesting story here. I approached him. I'm looking for, a room to stay for free. And he said, look, you know what? This is what I'm going to offer you. 3 nights, a room, breakfast, and you can use that swimming pool outside. I was like, wow, awesome. So here I had learned, my lesson the first couple of weeks of this trip to really ask him, what is your wish? How can I make you happy in return of this barter deal? Instead of offering him some random stuff. And so when I asked that question, again, him as well, he said, you know what, I have a dream. I want to be on television. And I said, I don't know if I can do that. I mean, I have cameras, video cameras. I can conduct an interview and give you the videotape. And he said, oh, that's enough. I'll take care of the rest because I'm going to take the videotape to my house, connect it to my television, and when people are coming over, I'm going to turn it on, and I'm on television. So, great. And this was so interesting. Just imagine, luckily I asked that question, how can I help you? Seeing him as my client, as my customer, wanting to figure out what his desire is. So we figured it out. And then part 2 was so interesting. And you may have experienced that maybe with clients, customers before. Sometimes they have a wish you would never figure out, if you don't ask. And then if you follow up, you're like, okay, how can we make this happen? All of a sudden there is a solution, which would be difficult to figure out on your own. So I would have never figured out his way of thinking if I wouldn't have asked the right questions, and listened. And so, easy for me. I gave him the videotape, he took it home, he was happy, I was happy, I got the room. So 3 nights in Vegas. So, okay, now I changed my strategy, because I wanted to take a bus from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. Buses do cost money. So I didn't have money. So I offered a service called the human sofa. So people could chip in $1 or more, to rest on the back of the human sofa and chip in $1. There we go. You see? So, and the beautiful thing is they could rest for a minute. It was hot, 110 degrees. And they could take a photo, and show it at home and say hey, I've been to Vegas sitting on that human sofa. What an experience. Sometimes clients even paid $5, the human sofa suffered a bit. So here's the interesting thing. What was this all about? On the surface, it's like a service. I offer, an opportunity for the client to rest because, people are tired, it's hot, and they just want to have a bench, But in the end of the day, it wasn't really. They didn't pay the money because they finally could sit down somewhere. There were other places they could have sat down. So what was it all about? It was, in the end of the day, it was about entertainment. And this was something in this situation very important. They had a laugh, they could take the photo, entertain their families at home, and said there was this German pretending to be a sofa. How different is that? Do Germans do that? Maybe. So they felt entertained. And I can tell you, this entire project, how to travel the world for free, became pretty much a world success for different reasons. For sure, the challenge itself. It's interesting to read and see a guy traveling without money, but also for humor reasons. The entertainment part was so important in this entire project. When I got that phone call from Jay Leno, and the first thing he said was like, listen, we read your book, it's good, and it's funny. Because normally, these adventure people who, let's say, dive in the world oceans or climb the mountain, they don't really connect to humor so well. Huh? They are like adventurers and explorers, and there is a bit of a seriousness. So here, this project was kind of an adventure story, but it was kind of funny in a way. And that's why I got the opportunity to be on the Tonight Show, to be on the Today Show, because there was something different. And maybe in your field, you've experienced that. Like when you have a project and things get challenging and there might be a possibility of a confrontation, that sometimes the ability to throw in a bit of humor can be very helpful. And I'm not talking about stand-up comedy in the office or something, just like a little bit lightheartedness, some entertainment. And I think this, for me, in my own world, it helped a lot, entertainment. Anyone here in the room who experienced that kind of humor, entertainment, has helped to solve something, right? Right, it can really be very beneficial. I give you two more examples. So, I was in San Francisco a week later, and again, another service. Like, San Francisco has these famous hills, and people are suffering to walk up these hills. So, I offered the service of the hill helper. The hill helper pushes people up the hill. Huh? Great service. Great service idea. So, but again, what was it all about? I mean, they could have walked up the hill for sure. But it was the kind of fun aspect, like the entertainment. Like I offered a little bit of entertainment. They could show the photo to their wife or to their family, and it was something good. I give you one more example. Again, San Francisco. Good place to do all these things, believe me. So pillow fighting. I offered the service of pillow fighting as like a stress relief. So I had the sign, pillow fighting, do you need a stress relief? So people after work, they walked by and they were like, yeah, I need a stress relief, let me hit you with a pillow. Huh? Yeah. So let's check it out. First client. "10 minutes later. I'm not even part of it anymore. This is the boss. This is the boss and his employee, $10 for me. Well, easy. So, again, obviously, this is about entertainment. So I could earn my flight ticket, like my airplane ticket to Costa Rica with all these, activities, pillow fighting, the hill helper, and because there was entertainment. And I know it's a very different thing what I've done than your work field is, but the entertainment and the lightheartedness gives a lot to people. Here's the result. So $300, and before we're going to move on to Costa Rica, I want to give you reasons why humor can be a success at work. And this is what I found in the Forbes magazine. So, for example, humor builds trust. And that's what I experienced in all these situations. Like, whenever humor was involved, people weren't scared of that stranger who travels, from Germany around the world with no money. I mean, that can be kind of suspicious, sure. But whenever humor came in, people felt like, well, this is harmless, Then humor boosts morale. I had that so many times when I worked in a team, and and there was some humor involved. Everyone, got much better. Funny people are more approachable, and so on. So many reasons. Many reasons. I mean, I'm going to have notes after the lecture, and if you ever want to get a complimentary paper, feel free to come to the table afterwards. So I took that plane to Costa Rica. $300 airplane ticket to Costa Rica. Beautiful place. If you want a very beautiful vacation, Costa Rica is an awesome place. And I could continue hitchhiking. So I hitchhiked across Costa Rica to Panama. So I was in Panama, and like as mentioned earlier, like I'm a German citizen, American resident. So I thought, as a German citizen, well, why shouldn't I approach the German ambassador in Panama and just try to border something with him, you know? So I just went to that embassy, you know. Does it work? I didn't know. Does it work? Embassies open to barter deals with people who don't have money. I wasn't sure, but the German ambassador was open to it. So I got an appointment, and he told me, like, okay, what can you offer? And I told him pillow fighting. He was like, nah, not really into pillow fighting today. Human sofa, we don't need that in Panama, sorry. But then I offered him something else. So I was carrying this costume as a British butler with me all the time. Because before the trip, I thought, like, well, maybe like being that assistant to people could be a very beneficial role. So here I tried it out for the first time. So I showed him the costume as the butler, and he liked it right away. You know, obviously the ambassador is this man with a high status, and he liked it to have his own butler. So he had this garden party going on with all these, wealthy people, successful businessmen, and I worked as his butler, and he was really proud. So he was like always telling everyone my personal butler, and I got a lot of attention. So there were other people saying, like, well, can I hire that butler? I want a butler, you know? So there was a little bit of a competition going on. So the ambassador was like, no, my butler. So, but at the end of the day, that's the ambassador, the German ambassador in Panama, his wife, the butler. So everyone was happy. And there was one guy, also like a businessman from Germany, and he wanted to hire me as well. So, before I talk about him, so this was all about assisting. And for me to learn to better assist. I think a very important leadership skill, even leaders direct, but to be able to assist team members, to improve team members, to step down and assist others, clients, team members, very important. And in my project, I saw that so clearly. The more I turned into this assistant, the more success I gained, because these people helped me a lot. And so, like, stepping down and being an assistant. I'm going to give you more examples. So this is the German businessman, looking serious, like, hey, that's sometimes in Germany we look serious. But he said, look, I want that butler. Work for me for 2 days, and we're going to chip in a flight ticket to South America. The ambassador and him. So what was his job? It was interesting. He was an agent. He was organizing operas around the world. So he was in Panama for the premiere of the Magic Flute of Mozart. So he was organizing this huge opera. So I was the butler helping him. First day, carrying in boxes, doing whatever. But then, when the premiere started, he didn't have enough people on stage. So he was like, look, as a butler, you got to do whatever I want you to do. Wear this and be one of these choir boys. And well, I was part of that crowd on stage. Yeah? Being an assistant means, like, you have to, take your ego and, put it aside. Yeah? So I did that, and it was worth it, because the ambassador and this agent, they chipped in money for a ticket, so I could fly from Panama to South America to Peru. Huge step. So I felt like the assistant, to be able to assist and help, must be such an important skill in leadership. So I arrived in Peru, and I just felt, so this was the plane, this was above like Colombia, country of Colombia, and then Peru. And here I continued this role of the assistant. So the butler wasn't really needed. So I was in the city of Cusco. Anyone ever been or heard Cusco, Peru? So Cusco is in the Andes, and it's this major town, very very popular with tourists. From Cusco, you can do like an organized 50-mile hike across the Andes to the famous Inca city of Machu Picchu. So, heard of it, huh? So, basically, these 50 miles, 12,000 feet, are very challenging, so people book these organized tours. So also for safety reasons. So I thought, hey, I'm gonna be the helper, the assistant again. And I offered, the tour guide on the left to be the porter and to carry the luggage of all the tourists. And he said, well, great idea. That's how you can go for free, to Machu Picchu, but you're not gonna make it. This is like challenging. This is hard work. This is like 12,000 feet elevation, and the workers, they work really hard in Peru. So I thought I can do it. I said, let me be the porter. I want to be more that helper and assistant. So here, first day out of 5, supposedly 5, working as a porter for this tourist group. So, but first night, I recognized that, maybe this challenge is too big, and I learned, like, hey, maybe, it's good to leave your comfort zone and always challenge yourself, but there are limits, and maybe I didn't see my limit. So the first night, this is like 9,000 feet altitude, and the workers, they didn't have sleeping bags. There was not even a real blanket. So I couldn't even sleep. So the next morning, everything was fast. These workers worked really hard. So really in a rush, and I recognized I might not be able to handle this, and things go the wrong way.
I'm done. The 20 kilograms, they basically are too much. No, I'm losing touch to the porters. Senor, una pregunta.
Sorry, but I just can't go on. I can strap the bags on the horses.
Sorry, that's not possible. The horses are fully loaded. No way.
The porter's getting angry. They're always shouting from up there that I should definitely hurry up and not take a break, because they have to be on top of the mountain before the tourists arrive. Because the tourists want food. So if they don't get food on time, they might want their money back. And it's my fault right now. So, shit. I'm over 4,000 meters and there is no air. I can't breathe. I wish I wouldn't have never done this.
So important lesson learned. It's great to have this lifestyle, to wanting to leave your comfort zone, to grow and to succeed. But there is a line, and I crossed that line, and I knew I won't be able to handle this. So what should I do now? 3 more days. With that pace, can I do it? I'm not sure. Or the other option was to go back on my own. But going back to Cusco on my own, that could have been possibly dangerous. You're not supposed to kind of do these individual walks in the Andes because people get lost and things like that. So what should I do? So here I had to be decisive. On the spot. Continue with the risk of not making it, or going back with the risk of some kind of potential danger. And luckily, these last 4 months I was already traveling, I had sharpened my decisiveness. Because, like wearing 10 different hats a day, I had to make 10 different decisions a day, or even sometimes like 20 or 30 different decisions a day. So I've gotten so much better in my own decisiveness. And again, in everybody's profession, decisiveness in leadership is so important. And decisions cannot always be the right decisions, no worries, but often they have to be made without hesitation. So I had to decide what I do. So I have to go back to Cusco. And it was the right decision. Nothing happened. I went back, didn't make it over there. So here, just like a few arguments why there is an importance of decision making in management. Business growth, achieving objectives, increasing efficiency, innovation, motivation, name it. So decisiveness is a really important one. So I was happy to be back in Cusco, and a good friend of mine lives there. So he said, okay, you can stay in my house and rest for like 3 days after all this, But unfortunately, something terrible happened. So this might sound a little bit, unusual, but that evening he had like this oven, like old-fashioned oven. We put wood in, and somehow the house went on fire. So we don't know how it could happen, if something leaked, if we didn't pay attention, if the construction wasn't right. We don't know. All of a sudden the living room was on fire. And the problem was, like in Peru, at that time, that evening time, they didn't have running water. Sometimes it's on and off. So I ran outside to the neighbors, and I speak like not really good Spanish. So I was shouting like, fuego, fuego, and fuego actually means more like lighter than fire. So when people hand you over a lighter, it doesn't really help with the fire. So it was a little bit of a difficult one. So, and there was no way to sleep that night in the house, and the next couple of nights neither. This was like, the fire department came, and there was no way to stay in there. So this was the biggest crisis I had. I mean, if you look at the first part of the trip, I mean, it was all kind of lighthearted, already challenging, but now I was at the point, I lost my motivation. Like, I was ready to go back home. Like, I felt like this is not fair. And when this feeling comes up, it's not fair. I think it's very important to always remind ourselves to be self-responsible, because it's not fair, the world is not fair, it's someone else's fault. That's giving up responsibility. And I was kind of on my way to do that. But luckily, I connected to many people there that night. So that night, I slept somewhere outside, and the next morning, I met all these like travelers in Cusco. And here comes the seventh skill: relationship building, connecting. And that's what I practice along the way so much. So it was natural for me to tell everyone my story, and say, hey, the fire, Machu Picchu, everything went wrong. And luckily, I was able to connect to strangers. Luckily, I had practiced, relationship building to connect to others, because these people motivated me. They said, you're not going to go home. No, you're not. You're going to go to Antarctica. So these people, my relationship skills helped me that I surrounded myself with people who motivated me. So connecting and relationship building is such an important skill in business, in leadership. Like to connect to others, to be a trustworthy person, to have a relationship with many others is so important. And I can tell you one example. Like, I was back in Germany a couple of weeks ago, and I was in a corporation giving a workshop. And that morning, when we were about to start the workshop, unfortunately, the former Chancellor of Germany, Helmut Kohl, passed away. Some of you probably have heard in the news, Helmut Kohl was a leader in Germany for 16 years. All, the 80s and 90s, when I grew up there, we thought there was only one president for, forever, because it was this man always being in power. So Helmut Kohl. So I read many quotes about Helmut Kohl, why he was in power for 16 years. And it always comes down to his skills of relationship building. Because Helmut Kohl, he was maybe not the best diplomatic person. Sometimes he was, was this big man. Sometimes he was just like, kind of upfront to people. Well, maybe not so good. But he knew how to connect and build relationships. So in his party, in the German party system, and with all the international leaders. He could call the American president and say, hey, what's up? It's kind of, he was close to all these leaders. And that's what many people say nowadays, his major skill was relationship building. And that's why he could stay in power for so long. So back to the trip. So luckily these people I met helped me, and they said, look, we're going to help you to overcome this hurdle right now, and we're going to support you with some food, with an accommodation, you need to sleep, and we even had a little excursion. So because I connected, and I was able to build relationships. So here's a very interesting study. Almost 500,000 people joined. 2/3 of the respondents stated that building and maintaining relationships is a critical competency for leadership. I've worked with corporate leaders. They tell me 50% of the time is like connecting. I didn't know before. I was like, seriously, yeah, 50% sometimes is connecting. So here we go. Argentina, final stage of my trip. So my goal was to reach Antarctica. So the trip was Europe, Berlin to Antarctica, 25,000 miles. So I made it to Argentina, kind of like the last 20 days of my trip. So the most southern city of South America and of the entire world is called Ushuaia. Ushuaia is kind of known to people in the adventure field because Ushuaia is like the harbor port for expedition ships to Antarctica. But if you book a cruise from Ushuaia to Antarctica and return, it costs you $15,000. It's very exclusive tourism. Only 25,000 people a year can really go to Antarctica. It's just like not mainstream. And it's obviously expensive to go with these icebreakers into Antarctica. So very difficult if you travel without money. So I contacted all these cruise ships before I started the trip. So that was something I planned. And one of these cruise ships said, okay, if you're going to make it here by November, early season, you're going to be the assistant of the expedition leader. So that was my entrance, in the ship to really travel for free. And again, the assistant of the expedition leader. So I was back in that role of the assistant. So I happily took that role and I thought, well, this is easy now. 10 days, Antarctica, I get food, I have a bed. I mean, there is no big challenge. But it was different. And I guess you may have experienced that as well when you have a project and then that last week, it feels like, well, kind of like maybe easy last week, and it's not. It's never the easy last week. That's how I experienced all my projects. It's like there was never the easy last week. So what happened here, we crossed the Drake Passage to Antarctica, and it's the windiest sea region in the world. So the ship was kind of moving from one side to another, and I got seasick. Oh, it's not good. It's not seasickness, never good. Anyone already had that before on a cruise? How did it feel? Yeah, it's really bad. So in my situation, I had to work. So they said, look, hey, sorry, other people pay $10,000 to $15,000, you better work. So, to work and be seasick, well, that's definitely a comfort zone leaving exercise, but hey, in the end, it's something, to overcome. So I had to do this work, so I, was supporting the tourists, where they can go, what they can do. This was not Antarctica yet, this is like an island just off the coastline of Antarctica, so I had to kind of, be in between the penguins and the tourists, to keep things in order. So nothing too difficult, but being seasick, that's very, very challenging. So, but luckily, I could overcome it, seen it as a challenge, and there was the final destination, Antarctica.
I reached Antarctica. Yes!
Wigge is overjoyed to have finally reached his eagerly anticipated goal. 150 days of extreme highs and lows. Often, he has thought that Antarctica would remain just a dream after the most intensive months of his life.
I've reached Antarctica! Yes, I finally made it. I can't believe it. It happened. A few facts of this trip. I crossed 11 countries. I had 40 different places to sleep. I asked more than 500 times for food in shops and restaurants. I traveled 35,000 k's. Within 150 days, and over 100 people, very nice and generous people, helped me on this trip, and I'm really happy to have had the great chance to have met these very, very, very nice people. It's cold. Why did I travel here? I can't believe it.
So basically Antarctica was pretty cold at the end, but I had achieved my goal to travel from Europe 25,000 miles to Antarctica for free. No money for food, accommodation and travel. So for me, it was a great, huge experience. Adventure, but also experience to grow. So basically I was, at this stage, done it, went back with the ship, and I took an airplane from Argentina back to Europe, paid. So this was the end of the trip. But my project at this stage was not done. Because if you do this adventure and you don't tell anyone about it, there will not be any publication anywhere. So this was just 50% of the whole thing. So as soon as I returned back home, I just started to market, to sell, to write, first of all, so I filmed all this, to edit, to write, to market, to sell. So it was a period of another 2 years to make this all happen and to publish this as a book and as a television show, in all these different places and countries. So nowadays, I look back to it and I see why I was able to handle that second part, which was really challenging, because I had sharpened all these 7 skills I just mentioned. So I was prepared. I was prepared for second part. So if you look at this, to be a good listener, I was the one who was being interviewed after this from reporters. So you have to be a very good listener, to give good answers in an interview, to embrace change. So I had to embrace change, dealing with different markets, German, English. I had to assist my publicist. It was very important to be able to learn from my publicist and not have that ego and saying I know this better. I had to decide which people are good to work with, which media is good to go with. I had to entertain. Obviously, on the Tonight Show, there was some pressure, hey, you're going to sit next to Katy Perry, you better be funny. Well, it was not that difficult, next to Katy Perry, well, there is always good atmosphere. So, and I had to relate to many people to connect, all these media people. So luckily, I could sharpen this to go for part 2. And if you look at this now, you may miss something. Does anyone recognize that there is something missing? Yeah? We talked about 7 lessons of leadership. So where's the 7th one? I mean, this is just like 6. What is missing? No, we got relationships down here. Fail forward, exactly. Fail forward. Why is fail forward not included? Because I failed. I tried to make it happen, I was sitting in my office. How can I put that F on that last slide to make it good? It didn't work. It didn't work. I tried leader, but there is no leader, So I just failed, and I'm willing to learn, to fail forward. If any of you has an idea for my next presentation how to put that F in there, let me know. I'm going to be at that table outside, and I'm going to have notes. If you want to have a summary of this presentation, complimentary, I got some business cards and books and DVDs if you want to purchase How to Travel the World for free. Thank you very much, for listening. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.